Hey everybody, tonight we're going to be talking about the X2 Battle Armor from YIJOO Design. This thing is entirely die-cast, but very inexpensive and fairly well made, so it's worth talking about. We're going to take it apart, compare it to a few things, weigh it, measure it, the usual, so please join me. So as you can see off to the right there, it's available in 4 different colors. You got red, yellow, blue, and I have the silver one here. This is almost the first of its kind. There was another die-cast mechanical slider that we talked about, and it's by the same company. It was called the Mechanical Egg, and it was available in 3 different colors. I think it was yellow and blue and silver, and I have one of the silver ones. And I did a review on that. You can look back at that one. I may link to that in the description. But both are surprisingly well made. I'm kind of usually against die-cast things. I have reasons for that I'll go into here in just a few minutes. And then we'll get on to the rest of this. But I have to say, for the price, it is absolutely worthwhile. These were $10. Before we get too far into this, I need to tell you where I found it and how much it was, I guess. I found this one. I couldn't find it on Amazon yet, but I'm sure it'll show up on Amazon for about twice as much. Very inexpensive on AliExpress at a store called Zen Toy Store. And I've only bought this from them, so I don't know if they're a reliable store or not. So you'll have to take your own chances, but I'll put a link to this item from their store down in the description. It was about $10 and it only took about 8 days. So definitely worth thinking about. So yeah, I think this is well worth it. Well worth it. There's some tape. They've applied some Teflon tape on here, and I think it's, we'll try taking that off to see how much differently it performs, because I can easily replace that. But it's a 6-click slider in either direction. That's the top part, the decorative part, the bottom part here. Try to give you a better look since it's dark. It's not going to be easy to see against the background. I know in the advertising photos it says something like 12 baking processes, which, you know, die casting, it's an impressive manufacturing procedure, but it's not machining, and that's why I like machined things. I don't know, I don't want to sound elitist or anything like that, but die cast usually, at least a lot of the time in my life's experience, it's a weaker metal, and it's not really well suited for a lot of things. But it may work out just fine for this. There is a part in here that concerns me just slightly, and that would be the mechanism they have, their limiting mechanism, their limiter, their limiting pin, we could call it. You know, it runs down the middle part down here, and it hits that end, and it hits that end. And that's what stops it from sliding off the whole way. And that's the part that I'm slightly concerned about wearing down, and I'll show you that in a minute when we take it apart. But this top piece pops off, and it comes with, I think, there's 2, they're the fake tritium rods. They're just glow-in-the-dark rods, plastic, and they don't glow very brightly. I'll show them to you here in a second. And it's even came with a little UV flashlight. But you can pop this lid off, and that gives you access to the springs and the balls and everything else, and lets you take the whole thing apart. But you can also put those fake tritium vials, whichever colors you like, in these 2 slots, and that's kind of an interesting feature. But we'll get to that when we take it apart. I think the next thing we'll do is talk about what came in the box. So I'm familiar with this company because I have a few spinners from them, and they're all die cast as well. That's one of the reasons I sort of lost interest in spinners, at least the kind you can find for inexpensive prices on places like Amazon and AliExpress. a lot of the newer ones are just die cast, and they're just too easy to mass produce. So there's something about machining. I really like machined objects as opposed to die cast. But anyhow, back to this. Here's what you got. Very good number of spare parts, extra springs, I think 4 extra springs, 4 extra steel balls. The balls, we'll measure them again, but they're about 3 millimeter, in case I forget to tell you later. I did not measure these trits yet. We'll do that too. And then you get a little Allen wrench to adjust it. One of the features of this is that it has adjustable springs. So you can turn the screw to adjust the strength of the spring, and then we have this little UV flashlight. And that will be for brightening up these guys. Which I don't know if you'll be able to see that or not. Some are green, some are orange, and some are like purple. Okay, so let's try comparing this with a few things. One of the things it reminds me of right off the bat, and I'll tell you, like I said, I haven't used this very much. I don't think if I've mentioned it. I just got this today, but I can tell when you squeeze it from the sides, these edges here are a little hot, and if you're sensitive to that, it would start to irritate you right along here and here. Some people are pretty sensitive to stuff like that. I think I can handle this one. It's not sharp, but there's some hot edges, and I just think that's because the company's not aware of how we would typically hold a slider like this, a mechanical slider in particular, where you actually need to squeeze the sides a little bit in order to help control how fast it comes down. We typically don't use them without squeezing them a little bit. And as soon as I picked this up and tried it, well, it reminded me of the mechanical part of the Mackie CP2, because you know, this is like, look at that, that's like one of those giant wood saws at a lumber mill that really rakes your fingers. So that's what it reminded me of. But size-wise, well, we were talking about the egg. Here's the egg. You know, this one came with tape on it, and this one was also very inexpensive. It was only like 15 at the time. I think you can still get them for between 10 and 15. But I left the tape on it. I'm just going to leave the tape on it. Something this inexpensive, there's no point in taking it off, I guess, because I don't use this that often, but I do like it, and it was worth keeping and worth collecting, I think. And the tape's on there, It's working good the way it is. I'm just going to let it go. And I may or may not take the tape off of this now. I'm getting a little wishy-washy. I think I said I would. We'll see. I think I might, because I have other tape. I can put a new tape on there pretty easily. Anyhow, back to the comparisons. I don't think we did that very well. And a couple that everybody's pretty familiar with, the Top B slider from Metal Toys DZ. The Mackie CP3. So there are magnets in this, so there's like two here, two here, two here, and two here. So I guess I'll stand it on its end. We'll just go with whatever weight it says there. About 58 grams, so that should give you a rough estimate. For size, it is just a hair under 45 millimeters tall. At the widest point, because it's narrower, just slightly narrower in the middle here. At the widest point, it's 25 millimeters, and then at the thickest point, it is 13 millimeters. When it's fully extended, it is, oops, I'm slipping, 60, just under 63 millimeters. Okay, to take this apart, all you have to do is lift this silver plate up. But it's important that you lift it straight up. If you start to pry at one end, it's not going to want to come off. If you pry too hard, you might likely break the pin that runs down the middle of this. Just you have to remember that die-cast metal doesn't bend, it breaks, at least for the most part. So what you want to do is grasp it from both sides out here. Nothing's going to fall out, so you don't have to worry about springs. And pull these two pieces directly apart. We're going to be pulling them apart like this. Actually, it's not easy to grip those at all. You got to get a good fingertip grip. But you see how long that pin is. It needs to be extracted in this direction. You can't be prying it out this way or prying it out this way or trying to pry it off this way, or you're likely to break it. This whole thing's die cast, very thin. So here's your internal parts. Pretty well designed. The magnets hold that plate on. The pin goes all the way through to the bottom and lands inside this groove right in the middle. And that's why I'm concerned about this tip. If you're really rough with this thing, you're going to be banging that tip really hard against that edge, and eventually it's going to break or wear down or something. But I won't be using it that much, I don't think. Anyhow, so that's how you get it to this point. You take this off. We'll put that off to the side for now. And now you have to be careful now. If you slide it too far without that pin going the whole way through, it's going to slide right off the end, and the two balls and springs are going to shoot out the top. So as I am moving my finger, moving my top, this is the bottom. So I've flipped it upside down. And as I move this top part off, I'm going to be rolling my thumb over top of the springs and balls so that they don't come out. And there they are. So here is what would be considered the top half, because this part would go back on the top. And there are two set screws here, and that's another slight concern. They're a little bit loose, so there's a chance that they could vibrate loose or tight. And I guess they would be more likely to vibrate in the loose direction. So you might end up wanting to put Loctite on that. If you ever do, just use Loctite 222, the purple stuff. You don't need 242. Is that the blue? Yeah, 242 is the blue stuff that the spinner people use. That's way too strong for this. The purple's nice and temporary. Anyhow, that's interesting, and you probably won't need to use. Just keep an eye on it. That's what I'm saying. It's loose. It may come loose, but it's a nice feature in a sense, because you can adjust the spring. We don't have different springs. We've got extra springs that are all the same. I've checked them out, and they're all feel the same to me. But we can change the power of those springs by turning the screw that's behind them and pushing them further out. And then the ball sticks up further, and it gets, the spring gets compressed more, and you get more sound out of it. So that works pretty well. It's a shame that they didn't have a little bit more of a body thickness here, where they could put in another set screw directly behind these, so that once you got it set to where you wanted it, where you were happy with it, you could drop in that second set screw and then lock it into place. When they get tightened up together like that, if you watch my last video or the one before that, we talked about that a little bit. It's an interesting feature, and it would keep those from coming unscrewed without the need for Loctite. Okay, anyhow, there we have the whole thing apart. This is the bottom. Make sure I'm in focus. There's the tape on both sides. Looks like there's a bit of a groove. Yeah, there is a bit of a groove. Let's take that tape off. Oh, look at that. There's a groove underneath there. You know what? Uncovering that might actually change the sound of this thing. Could also make it work very poorly. Hard to say what's going to happen here. But we'll find out. And I can always put more tape on later. Alright, so when I checked the Allen wrench that came with this, it looks like it's closest to a 5/64 bit. Also, if you don't have that, a T8 bit will fit. That's for these two screws here. And in millimeters, probably give you a rough idea here. Maybe a 2mm bit or 1.75mm bit if those are made. Anyhow, you can use that or you can use the one that came with it. And you can turn those screws in or out to adjust your springs. We'll just leave them right where they are for right now and drop the springs back in. Right now they just stick a little bit above the surface. I have tweezers, I will use them. Now to put this back on, you just want to line up the dovetail. You know what I didn't take into account with that tape not being on there? It is going to be looser. This could be quite a different experience. Okay. Well, honestly, can't say as I noticed much of a difference. Might be a little louder. I wonder what those grooves are for. Unless, you know, it must be their attempt at I guess that's the way of trying to reduce. No, there's a little ridge that stands up right there at the edge of my thumbnail. If I can zoom in on it. There's a little ridge that stands up there and a little ridge that stands up here. So that's what it's running on. These must be for two things. For sound, but mainly to save material. They didn't, and to make this a little bit lighter. This whole area, this whole geometric part of the structure didn't need to be filled with metal. That must be the only reason. That, or, you know, adds to the sound a little bit. Either way, whoever sold this to me decided to put, whoever made it or assembled it, put the tape over top of that, which seems a bit unnecessary. So, okay, let's try real quick. That's pretty loud, right? Not too bad when you're cradling it in your fingers. Now let's quickly pop this off and we'll tighten these down a little bit. Let's try it again. Oh, geez, oh, Pete's. There it is. I demonstrated my stupidity for you. One ball and spring have left the building. Live and learn. Get in there. You know what, that does, maybe I didn't check all these springs closely enough. That feels different to me. Yeah, that looks different too. What else we got here? I want to give you an accurate review. Try to tell you what it came with. That one seems like an oddball. Maybe that's just an oddball by itself. Okay, I'm going to go with these two here. Or whatever two were closest there. Doesn't really matter. Jeez. Okay. Now, I was tightening it down to see if it made a big difference. Well, I really don't notice a difference. That is odd. Pop this apart again. Well, let's tighten these down a good bit more. I still don't notice much of a difference. I'm going to go further. Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay, well, I've watched plenty of my fellow reviewers have a rough evening. And this is not one of my best evenings. But we'll get there. I have to remember to put this lid back on before I test it. Well, you know, I can't say that it feels that much different. It might be louder. When you're holding it loosely, it might be louder. Well, it's adjustable, and that is an interesting feature. So we've clearly demonstrated that, I think. You know what we didn't do yet was put those little trits, the fake trits, in place. And we also didn't measure those. And we also didn't double check the measurement of the balls. So let's do that real quick. At least I don't think we did. .87, so roughly 3mm balls. These things are approximately 1.75mm diameter and about 11.5mm tall. So any object that size would fit in here. So like a lot of times what I've done with spinners and stuff that have a place for tritium, well, I don't have the money for tritium, and I'm not that interested in tritium, or for that matter, anything that glows in the dark. What would look nice in here, I think, would be a nice copper wire. So I may cut some copper wire that's this diameter to this length and drop it down in there. But let's pick a color. I think green's going to show up the best. Let's put those two green ones in. Get the rest of these out of here. Let's make a little pile of our junk off to the left here. Alrighty. And we'll put in the fake tritiums. They just should rest right down in this hole. A little slot, that rather. It looks a little nicer without those hollow, you know, without the cavity there, empty cavity. Let's brighten it up here. I think that's all I have to say about it. I think that's pretty neat. You know, what turned me off with the die-cast spinners, like I said, was, if I didn't say it, was just the fact that they're so reproducible. They changed the design slightly a little bit, and then and next month they make another batch, and then they just charge $10 or $15 for them, and nothing. It's not as personal as a machined object, I guess. So that's the thing. But you know, if they were to come out with, there are several different die-cast sliders that are out there right now, but they're not mechanical. I've shown you the two mechanical ones, this one and the mechanical egg. But the other ones that are die-cast they're magnet. They're either free-floating sliders, or they are ball sliders. And that doesn't really turn me on. I mean, I have a lot of ball sliders, and I have a handful of you know, free-floating sliders, and I'm not. Those are not real big with me, and my focus is on mechanical stuff lately. But to blow 10 or 15 bucks on a magnetic die-cast slider is not really up my alley. But I will blow 10 or 15 bucks on a die-cast mechanical slider. And if they keep making these, as long as they try to improve the design and make some changes and keep the price at about 10 bucks, I'll probably keep buying them. Not bad at all. Not bad at all. All right, well, let me know if you have any questions in the comments. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. As always, thanks for watching. Bye.